Suddenly the Grim Reaper vanishes. The man with the shining white hair looks at me, and holds out his hands in a gesture of welcome. I walk toward him, then directly into him, dissolving into his body. When I look down at myself, that I'm wearing a black robe, I raise my hands, and see bleached white, snarled bones, come together in prayer. I'd wake up screaming softly. One night, early in December, I lay in bed listening to the howling wind driving through a small crack in the window of my apartment. Sleepless, I got up, and threw on my faded Levi's, a t-shirt, sneakers, and down jacket, and walked out into the night. It was 3:05 a.m. I walked aimlessly, inhaling deeply the moist, chilly air, looking up into the starlit sky, listening for a rare sound in the silent streets. The cold made me hungry, so I headed for an all-night gas station, to buy some cookies and a soft drink. Hands in my pockets, I hurried across campus, past sleeping houses, before I came to the lights of the service station. It was a bright fluorescent oasis in a darkened wilderness of closed food joints, shops, and movie theaters. I rounded the corner of the garage adjoining the station, and nearly fell over a man sitting in the shadows, leaning his chair back against the red tile station wall. Startled, I retreated. He was wearing a red wool cap, grey corduroy pants, white socks, and Japanese sandals. He seemed comfortable enough in a light windbreaker, though the wall thermometer by his head registered 38 degrees. Without looking up, he said in a strong, almost musical voice, "Sorry if I frightened you." "Oh, no, that's okay. Do you have any soda pop?" "Only have fruit juice here. And don't call me Pop." He turned toward me, and with a half-smile removed his cap, revealing shining white hair. Then he laughed. That laugh. I stared blankly at him for one more moment. He was the old man in my dream. The white hair, the clear, unlined face, a tall slim man of 50 or 60 years old. He laughed again. In my confusion I somehow found my way to the door marked office, and pushed it open. Along with the office door, I had felt another door opening to another dimension. I collapsed onto an old couch, and shivered, wondering what might come screaming through that door into my orderly world. My dread was mixed with a strange fascination that I couldn't fathom. Sat, breathing shallowly, trying to regain my previous hold on the ordinary world. I looked around the office. It was so different from the sterility and disarray of the usual gas station. The couch I was sitting on was covered by a faded, but colorful Mexican blanket. To my left, near the entryway, stood a case of neatly organized traveler's aids. Maps, fuses, sunglasses, and so on. Behind a small, dark brown walnut desk was an earth-colored, corduroy upholstered chair. A spring water dispenser guarded a door marked private. Near me was a second door, that led to the garage. What struck me most of all was the home-like atmosphere of the room. A bright yellow shag rug ran its length, stopping just short of the welcome mat at the entry. The walls had recently been painted white, and a few landscape paintings lent them color. The soft incandescent glow of the lights calmed me. It was a relaxing contrast to the fluorescent glare outside. Overall, the room felt warm, orderly, and secure. How could I have known that it was to be a place of unpredictable adventure, magic, terror, and romance? I only thought then, a fireplace would fit in nicely here. Soon my breathing had relaxed, and my mind, if not content, had at least stopped whirling. This white-haired man's resemblance to the man in my dream was surely a coincidence. With a sigh, I stood, zipped up my jacket, and sallied forth into the chill air. He was still sitting there. As I walked past, and stole a last quick look at his face, a glimmer in his eyes caught mine. His eyes were like none I'd seen before. At first they seemed to have tears in them, ready to spill over, then the tears turned to a twinkle, like a reflection of the starlight. I was drawn deeper into his gaze until the stars themselves became only a reflection of his eyes. I was lost for a time, seeing nothing but those eyes, the unyielding and curious eyes of an infant. I don't know how long I stood there. It could have been seconds or minutes, maybe longer. With a start, I became aware of where I was. Mumbling good night, feeling off balance, I hurried toward the corner. When I reached the curb, I stopped. My neck tingled. I felt that he was watching me. I glanced back. No more than 15 seconds had passed. But there he was, standing on the roof, his arms crossed, looking up at the starry sky. I gaped at the empty chair still leaning back against the wall, then up again. It was impossible. If he had been changing a wheel on a carriage made from a giant pumpkin drawn by huge mice, the effect couldn't have been any more startling. In the stillness of the night, I stared up at his lean shape, an imposing presence, even at a distance. I heard the stars chime like bells singing in the wind. Suddenly, he snapped his head around and stared directly into my eyes. He was about 60 feet away, but I could almost feel his breath on my face. I shivered, but not from the cold. That doorway, where reality dissolved into dreams, cracked open again. I looked up at him. "Yes," he said. "Can I help you?" Prophetic words. "Excuse me, but you are excused," he smiled. I felt my face flush. This was starting to irritate me. He was playing a game with me, but I didn't know the rules. "All right, how did you get up on the roof?" "Get up on the roof?" he queried, looking innocent and puzzled. "Yes." "How did you get from that chair?" I pointed. "Up to that roof, in less than 20 seconds. You were leaning back against the wall, right there." I turned, walked over to the corner, "And you?" "I know exactly what I was doing," his voice boomed. "There is no need to describe it to me. The question is, do you know what you were doing?" Of course I know what I was doing. I was getting angry now. I wasn't some child to be lectured to. But I desperately wanted to find out the old man's gimmick, so I held my temper and requested politely, "Please, sir, tell me how you got up on the roof." He just stared down at me in silence until the back of my neck began to get prickly. Finally he replied, "Use the ladder. It's around back." Then, ignoring me, he looked upward again. I walked quickly around back. Sure enough, there was an old ladder, leaning crookedly against the back wall. But the ladder's top was at least 5 feet short of the roof's edge. Even if he could have used it, which was highly doubtful, that wouldn't explain how he got up there in a few seconds. Something landed on my shoulder in the darkness. I gasped, and whirled around to see his hand. Somehow, he'd gotten off the roof and crept up on me. Then I guessed the only possible answer. He had a twin. They obviously got their kicks scaring the wits out of innocent visitors. I accused him immediately. "All right, mister, where's your twin?" "I am nobody's fool." He frowned slightly, then started to roar with laughter. "Ha! That clinched it. I was right. I'd found him out." But his answer made me less sure of myself. "If I had a twin, do you think I'd be wasting my time standing here, talking with nobody's fool?" He laughed again, and strode back towards the garage, leaving me standing open-mouthed. I couldn't believe the nerve of this guy. I hurried to catch up with him. He walked into the garage and started to tinker with a carburetor under the hood of an old green Ford pickup. "So I'm a fool," I said, sounding even more belligerent than I'd intended. "They're all fools together," he replied. "It's just that a few people know it, others don't. You seem to be one of the latter types. Hand me that small wrench, will you?" I handed him his damn wrench and started to leave.